Okay, hi guys. Hello again. We're back with another session. This time it's a little different from the setting that you've seen so far. That was a panel discussion. This one is a fireside chat between Neil and Anirudh. Before starting that, I want to just ask one thing. Say one thing actually. If you have seen Pepper's communication on social media, there's one thing that we've been saying enough and more times, which is SEO plus GEO is equal to search everywhere optimization. To thrive in this environment, brands really need to think beyond SEO. And to elaborate on that, here we have with us Neil Patel. He is one of the most recognized digital marketers and is the co-founder of Neil Patel Digital and the creator of Uber Suggest, named a top influencer by the Wall Street Journal and the top 10 marketer by Forbes. He has helped large brands. Moderating the session is Anirudh. He needs no introduction, but I will still say it. He's the co-founder and CEO of Pepper. Like I said the last time, there's no Pepper without Anirudh. He has worked on mixing AI with human expertise with our in-house products like Nimbus and now with Atlas. So now you'll be hearing from these two next. Over to you guys.
Great. Thanks, Dia. Hey, Neil, it's such a pleasure to host you today. We've been very fortunate to have someone like you join in Atlas. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. Neil, you've been at the center of every major marketing shift from the rise of SEO to dominance of content, with AI search changing how discovery works. Why do you believe GEO is, the next paradigm, and how does it redefine what marketers must prioritize today?
So the reason I think it's the next paradigm is because the way we search has changed. If you just go back 3 years ago, okay, just literally 3 years ago, you would perform a search, you would click on 10 blue links or 5 blue links or 3, whatever the number is. You do your research and then you would keep going until you were satisfied. And you could end up spending, hour, 2, 3 hours doing tons of research, or sometimes, you get it done pretty quick in 5, 10 minutes. In today's world, you can ask very specific questions. It can digest billions, if not trillions, of data points all across the internet and give you an answer in seconds based on relevancy and what they think would be most helpful for you. And then you can start asking follow-up questions. And as a searcher, that is a much better experience than you having to go to 10 different websites to figure out what you want. And then when you click over to a website, I understand websites may not get as much traffic, but when you click over to a website, in most, there's a high likelihood that you're ready to actually make the leap and convert to whatever product, service that you're researching. So what we're seeing really high conversion rates. We're seeing GEO make up less than 1% of traffic for most businesses, but the businesses that are doing it and are ranking well on ChatGPT and getting mentioned, it's not really ranking, but getting mentioned more than the competition. They're getting the sentiment analysis is really good compared to the competition. We're seeing some of these businesses get, even though it's less than 1% of their traffic, it's 9% of their online sales. Some of them get into the teens, like 13, 14, 15%. But we're typically seeing high single digits from a conversion standpoint, right? Or from a percentage of sales. And not only has search shifted, because we're seeing this technology integrated, whether you're searching on Instagram or on Google or in ChatGPT or Perplexity, it's rolling out everywhere. But the intent of the searcher is much higher, and searchers are much more satisfied. And Sundar from Google said when they have the AI overviews and they're showing up for those queries, people are searching Google's seeing 10+% increase in usage. So it just shows that it's creating a better experience. And from a marketer standpoint, the conversions are nothing like we've seen ever before.
That's amazing to know, Neil. And just curious, while traditional SEO has been about rankings, keywords, and backlinks, in GEO, context and authority is very different. What SEO laws break in an AI first world?
So in an AI first world, and I do believe SEO is adapting, right? Whether you want to call it search everywhere optimization or GEO or AI SEO, it doesn't matter. But we do see it adapting. Like SEO used to be keyword based. These LLMs are mainly topic based. And traditional SEO is evolving more topic based and has been for many years. But there's a few nuances, okay? So with SEO, you really needed backlinks. On GEO, it is more brand mentions. And we're seeing the brand mentions drastically impact how often you're mentioned. But there's more than just brand mentions. So like with SEO, people like you want good reviews and ratings and use schema markup and showcase that when people search for your products or services so you can see the star rating. With GEO, we're actually seeing them look at reviews and pull from products and services that have not just high reviews from a rating perspective, but also quantity of reviews, right? With traditional SEO, we weren't seeing that as much as we are with GEO. Also, with content, when you look at traditional SEO, 10, 15 years ago, you would write content based on keywords. Call it 7-ish years ago, it changed to focusing on humans, and you write content for humans and you go super in depth. If you look at today's world with GEO, they want you to write content for humans, package it for AI. They don't care if you have 5,000 words or 2,000 words. They want the answer as quick as possible and concise, but you got to satisfy both users. A great example of a site that does this is CNBC. So it's a financial website. CNBC will have an article on some topic. So like today, the US government has shut down. So they'll have an article about the US government shutdown, but they'll have key points and they're summarizing, and usually three bullet points is what they use, not always, but usually at the top. And it's concise to the point. A user can get what they need in 3 bullet points. Think of that as AI. Traditional SEO, if you just had 3 bullet points and that was your content, you would be screwed in most cases. They want long, in-depth content. AI wants things summarized, short, to the point, right? And same with structured data and schema markup. So when you're looking at structured data, with traditional SEO, it's helpful to do it. But when we looked at the majority of the results that they're pulling up, it was well over 50%. Some of the platforms like ChatGPT was over 60 or 70%. I don't have the data in front of me, but I know it's a high percentage of the results that they're pulling from are using structured data, right? So yes, that is something that was involved in SEO, but it's more of a requirement for GEO than it was for SEO. And the differences over time are going to start becoming more similar because traditional search is evolving and these LLMs like ChatGPT are evolving. And I'll give you a great example of this. If with traditional SEO, if you had guest posts on a lot of junk websites talking about how pepper is amazing, it's not that helpful for traditional SEO because Google knows that these are just crap sites. With ChatGPT, if 10 crap sites mention pepper in guest posts, it actually helps you quite a bit. But I believe ChatGPT will evolve and say, wait, these 10 sites over here, they're junk. These sites like New York Times or G2 for software related stuff is more relevant. We should put more weight on this. I think their algorithms are going to start evolving more. And in many aspects, they'll be similar to what you're seeing in traditional SEO.
And you're very right. I don't know if you saw, but Reddit's stock went down 9% yesterday because somehow or the other it's not showing up as much as it used to be a couple of months back or a couple of weeks back. So I think you're right. The algorithms are evolving. So it's a lot on being on the edge as one builds out. Neil, quick question for you. Search, and I know you've been talking about this for some time. Search no longer just means Google. It's happening across platforms, right? YouTube, TikTok, apart from all the LLMs. What does it really mean to truly optimize for everywhere, right? How should CMOs think?
Yeah, so let's say I'm Louis Vuitton and I sell handbags or purses, okay? If someone types in handbags and purses on Google, pretty obvious. You want to end up showing up. If you ask ChatGPT a question related to luxury handbags, you would want Louis Vuitton to pop up and talk about how it's an amazing handbag, luxurious, etc. If someone on Instagram is looking for handbags and they search that within the search bar, there's roughly 6.5 billion searches a day on Instagram, the last I looked up. I don't know exactly where that data came from, but it was somewhere on the web that we were able to pull it from, and we put it in a beautiful chart and we cited our sources. Although the majority of searches on Instagram are for friends, but people do search for content. If they search for handbags or like new handbags or luxury handbags, you would want people showcasing your handbags in images on Instagram or videos, right? The same would go with YouTube. When someone when they type in handbags or handbag reviews, you would want them to talk about the best handbags in Louis Vuitton being one of them, right? So, sorry about that.
Bless
Sorry about that. So you would want to make sure wherever people are searching, you show up, and that way you're top of mind. So when they're interested in making a purchase, they come to you first.
Yep. And just curious, how does one design content systems so that one is able to think through all these channels? Like, what would your advice be to really, how do they really think through structuring their own teams that allow them to be able to do this across all these platforms?
There's no right or wrong way to structure a team. Typically, what we're seeing in most large organizations, I don't know what startups are doing from a structure standpoint. They also usually don't have as much capital unless you're an AI well-funded startup, right? But what I'm getting at with large corporations, we're seeing them have each department. So like, let's say social media, there's different people within each social channel or social platform within that social media group. So few people work on YouTube, few people work on Instagram and TikTok, and you get the point. Their job is to also optimize for search. Either they learn it in-house or hire people, or they work with agencies like ours that help them. And we're seeing people look at it from a multi-channel standpoint, and they usually have different people internally focusing on the channel that their job is for. So if your job is Google, you focus on Google. If your job is ChatGPT and Perplexity, and sometimes people have multiple channels, like a lot of times we see in-house people have Instagram and TikTok under one group, but we usually see YouTube separate. We also see LinkedIn as separate, but they are supposed to handle search within those platforms. Now, not every platform has someone who's dedicated to it, or they work with a consultant. Like if you look at Instagram, LinkedIn specifically, their search, if you ever search on LinkedIn, it's not that great compared to like Instagram or some of the other social platforms like YouTube. So most people don't focus on optimizing for search everywhere on LinkedIn because it's not as robust of a search product and it's not as good. So they just don't optimize it for it yet. But the moment LinkedIn improves their search, you'll see it adjust and improve over time.
And Neil, just quick question. You've been running experiments across thousands of campaigns across so many customers. Are there any geo tactics that have worked in your, company that most marketers aren't thinking about yet? Anything you would probably be open to divulging?
I would divulge whatever people ask. But being honest, this isn't 7 to 10 years ago. 7 to 10 years ago, what I mean by that statement there was stuff that you could do that not too many people are doing. And then it's a hack, a strategy. It's not a silver bullet, but close enough to it where it's getting you much better results quicker. If you look in today's world, if I tell you how we've gotten clients, and we have case studies on our NP Digital site for this, where we're taking their most popular content pages and adding key points or summaries above and FAQ scheme on the bottom of the article. And we're starting to see people get included in the AI overviews within 24 to 48 hours. And we're starting to see people get cited more in ChatGPT. You'd be like, oh, this is amazing. But none of this is revolutionary stuff that people can't figure out, because now news spreads really fast. And in marketing, I know people are looking for a silver bullet. They don't really exist anymore. And in marketing, there aren't really any more moats. The only moat that's left that we see is your brand. And I'll give an easy example that everyone can relate to. It doesn't matter if you're in India or US or UK. There's basketball, the NBA. There's one person that everyone knows globally, or majority, Michael Jordan. Okay? Whether you watch basketball or not, a lot of people know the Michael Jordan shoes, and they trade for a premium amount. Now, if you and I want to create a shoe company, I bet you we can figure out how to make shoes that look as comfortable or that feel as comfortable and look as cool. But I bet you we won't even generate 1/100th of the sales of Michael Jordan shoes. Not even close to 1/100th. It'll be a fraction of that. Why? Because they have that logo of that Jumpman, and it's iconic. And I was at his golf tournament in Vegas years ago. This was pre-COVID. And they were talking about how other athletes have Michael Jordan shoes and they sign underneath their brand. And I believe one of them was like Derek Jeter, and there's a few others. And I was talking to this team, and they're telling me how when people don't list their name as much and it's not as focused and they just focus more on the Jordan brand with the logo, it actually does better. And that's what you're paying for. That's the power of a brand, right? You look at Louis Vuitton, you're paying for that LV. You look at Chanel, you're paying for the word Chanel. It's the power of a brand. And some of these brands are 100 plus years old. Some of them aren't. And that's really the only moat. And marketers need to stop thinking about what's a quick hack to do better on GEO or do better on SEO. And they need to keep in mind roughly 1 out of every 3 searches is for a brand name. How do you build an amazing brand that people love, want to talk about and evangelize? That's how you do well in the long run.
No, I think that's timeless advice, Neil. And for a lot of CMOs who are now thinking about AI search and especially the way the world's moving, uh, it's very difficult to also think about tangible ROI. So boards and CFOs are very skeptical right now of intangible visibility with geo coming in. And so how should CMOs really reframe this ROI for financial decision makers? Have you been coming across those things?
We don't really see too many concerns about that because it's not hard to show ROI. Geo is extremely profitable for the companies we work with. We're seeing massive ROIs. They're seeing it in their own analytics. And, they understand that a lot of the people are, yes, using Google, and they're using AI mode now. And AI mode is going to be integrated to all Chrome browsers, which is the most popular browser. They also understand that, hey, we got to go out there and optimize for Perplexity and ChatGPT and all the other solutions out there because they're getting tons of traction. So we're just seeing people adapt to all of them, and they're seeing the data already. If you're doing SEO, a lot of people are seeing decent results with GEO. Yes, there's some nuances that we talked about, but they're seeing some metrics and they're like, double down on this. Go get us more revenue.
Makes sense. And Neil, just curious, I don't know if you saw recently, ChatGPT just launched commerce with
Yeah.
Stripe.
So there's
And
Stripe integration, Shopify, Etsy integration. Their stock boomed yesterday or the day before from the integration, from what I saw.
exactly, exactly.
But yeah, so more people are just going to adopt on because, and not just that. When ChatGPT announces 500 billion valuation or 300, I forgot what the latest is. It's either one or the other. And how
Yeah.
they have 700 plus million weekly active users and it's growing extremely fast. Businesses adapt at that point because it's already big and successful and they're generating over $1 billion a month in revenue and it's growing really fast.
Yeah. So, no, I completely agree. And Neil, at Pepper, we've been seeing some of these biggest CPG brands who never really, invested in SEO because they didn't think it was important enough for them. They already had a big brand, right? But now suddenly we're seeing insane demand and pull from them. These are people who've never really gone or adopted digital first, especially on platforms like these, and all of them now want to come up, show up in their communities, on Reddit, on these different channels. Do you think this entire agentic commerce thing could actually be a very massive accelerant where this just changes, and even amplifies what SEO could never do in terms of, commerce driven outcomes transform with geo? Is that a big shift you see in the industry coming on?
I do, but I don't think it's going to be as big as a shift as people think in the short time frame. I think it's a massive shift within 5 years. But let me give you an example of this. So in today's world, we're actually seeing a lot of people discover products on social media and starting to buy within TikTok and Instagram. You guys see this yourselves. Has that crushed Amazon and make Amazon go away? No, a lot of people still use Amazon. Even ChatGPT, even with its popularity, there's a lot of use cases to actually see 10 blue links on a Google search. I know there's not always 10 blue links, but you guys get the point. And it doesn't mean that traditional search is dead. We see these ecosystems living all together, or these platforms living all together. Just like according to Sprout Social, the average person uses and logs into roughly 6.6 social networks per month. We see people using multiple search platforms. And we see them still transacting on Amazon, seeing them transact on Google, seeing them go through Google Shopping, seeing them buy on ChatGPT, see them discovering products on TikTok and Instagram. We see all the platforms working together. We see this causing more opportunity, but we don't see it where in the next 6 months, it's going to be where the traditional ways of shopping online are going to be dead, right? We think this is just another avenue to purchase, and there is no necessarily in the short run, within the next 12 months, we don't see a winner take all. Like if you look at ChatGPT, we don't see that taking away from in-app product purchases from Instagram and TikTok. We think social shopping is going to grow at a rapid rate. They say what, $7 trillion-ish by 2030. So we think multiple channels and avenues will all grow faster and faster and bigger over time.
And I completely agree, Neil. And Neil, as you know, the consumer obviously also evolves. I think the consumer trends are changing at a very fast pace, right? And I know, at its core, truly SEO was a lot about consumer intent, right? So, how should brands now think about capturing that consumer intent in a more sharper, more strategic manner? Are there any long term, and you spoke a lot about brand, right? Are there any long term moats a brand can invest in when it comes to GEO, SEO, and content, which is an extension of what they've already been practicing, or do they really need to just ditch the playbooks they were building on and go build something new?
I think the existing stuff that they're doing works well. You just got to fine tune it here and there, whether it's doing more comparison, creating content that's more granular, how people can use your products and services for different industries and getting more specific like that. But I don't really see any new moats. I think moats are disappearing in marketing, and really brand is the only thing that's left. And strategies have to be adapted depending on the platform and depending on the algorithms and the changes. But I don't really see it where building something new will solve all your problems. I also don't see it where doing the same old stuff will solve your problems or adapting. I think it's just an ultra competitive landscape, and you got to try your best by doing as much as possible and do it in a fine-tuned way, not a spray and pray approach. You don't need to do 50 things. You need to do maybe 5 or 10 really well.
And just curious, Neil, you've built a big brand yourself, right? In terms of building that credibility and that insight. How does a business being born in an AI first era, who's probably going to be competing against these 100-year-old brands, like you mentioned, uh, stay strong? What are any insights or tips or thoughts you can give to people in terms of how they can think about approaching brand building and obviously at the same time enjoy some value from geo and AI search?
They're not going to like this answer, but 10 years. So we did a study, and I believe the number was roughly 18%. When someone's in business for 10 years and they do marketing consistently, roughly 18% of your ideal customers will recognize your brand at that point. 10
Wow.
plus years. Most people want to think in terms of 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5 max, but people don't want to think 10, 20, 30 years. And you look at these AI companies like Lovable that climb to 100 million in revenue super fast, and they're on their way to $1 billion in recurring revenue. That's great. I'm proud of them for their success. I have never been able to build a company that can grow that quickly, and most people can't. I'm just speaking in reality, okay? So instead of thinking short term, and I'm not saying Lovable is, but people are seeing these startups grow super fast, and that's not the majority. They're only talking about the few that are growing fast, and they're ignoring the others that raise a ton of money and have failed miserably, right? But everyone wants to focus on the ones that are crushing it. And that's not most businesses. It's slow and steady wins the race, and you got to build it over time and put in tons and tons of years, but that's not what people want to do, but that's really how it works.
Yeah. And Neil, just moving to a different angle with how agentic AI is changing, I'm just a very, blatant question to you. Do you see SEO agencies in their current form and shape continuing to survive this entire AI wave?
I'll say no because you said it in its current form. Most SEO agencies haven't been adapting to the new world in LLMs. But if they do adapt, they'll be fine.
And what are ways that even agentic AI can change SEO with? Like I just saw SEMrush, Ahrefs, these platforms just launched their MCP.
MCPs,
Uh,
yep.
yes.
So
Any
it's
insight?
leveraging them. It's adapting to the times and being more efficient. And agencies shouldn't look at it as like, oh, I can do this and save on expenses. It should be, I can do this, get more done, and deliver more stuff for my customers and go above and beyond to get them better results over the competition. Because what you're finding in marketing is marketing is so expensive that doing extra 3, 4, 5% sometimes can really help you stand out against your competition, and that could be enough to just win, right? You don't have to win by a mile. You can win just by, a foot. And doing extra can really set you apart, and not enough companies are. So that's one. The second thing that they got to do is they got to think about strategy. So how are people now going to do research with these AI platforms before choosing a product or service? How can you create all the comparisons? So an easy example of this is we can all relate. We can use toilet paper. We all use toilet paper in this world, right? Unless you're a baby. And with toilet paper, I could take 20 brands if I have mine, and I think mine's amazing, talk about how it's more eco-friendly. I'm giving a hypothetical here. How mine's more eco-friendly, how mine more can hold more water, how mine doesn't rip apart when you're wiping, how mine smells better, how mine doesn't have tons of chemicals, which is bad for your body, right? And I can break down like 50 other factors, and I can talk about how you need less of them per square, it's cheaper, how it lasts longer, how you don't need to buy as much, right? And I can start breaking down all these things to talk about how my product's better, assuming it is true. And kind of content like that is very helpful for AI when they're doing research and pulling recommendations in and telling people or recommending products that they can buy.
And Neil, for you, I'm sure a lot of people earlier on in SEO were wondering about what their careers would be, given the phrase of SEO is dead, and it's happening for the last 20 years now. How can a SEO today really, upskill, right? What are the things that they should be doing more of? What are the things they should not be spending more time on?
So they should be first looking at multiple platforms. You have to take an omni-channel approach with SEO. ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Google aren't enough. You got to look at Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all the other social platforms out there. Even the App Store, right? The Apple App Store, Google Play Store, they drive a lot of revenue. You want to make sure your apps are ranking. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you got to create content on multiple platforms. If you look at search, yes, you want to rank everywhere, but these platforms have data deals. Like Google owns YouTube, so that's obvious they pull from there. But ChatGPT is pulling from YouTube, right? They're pulling from Reddit, not as much as they used to based on the stock price, but they're still pulling from them. They have data deals with Reddit. I believe Sam Altman was himself a shareholder. His fund was a shareholder in Reddit before they went public. So you want to make sure you're on these platforms because they're pulling from these places as well. The third, and this is the most important, think about what your competition is doing to delight the customer and figure out how you can go more above and beyond that, because that's what really helps build a brand, and that causes more searches. And fourth, keep all your content and information up to date. With AI, most of these platforms like pulling from relevant, up-to-date places versus stuff that's a year old.
That's very interesting advice, Neil. And I
And
think
then I'll give one last one. You got to go global, because if you look at the consumer, we're not, companies are no longer US companies or India-based companies. Tata in India owns Range Rover and they own Jaguar. You look at Google, they're global. Apple, global. Microsoft, global. Even companies that were outside of the US that are not headquartered here, DHL, although I believe it was a San Francisco company, DHL, which everyone knows to be more so a German-based company, or they're owned by a German company, they're global, right? Most corporations are global. We see Samsung products all over the world. Samsung was not started here in the US. Globalization with your SEO, your rankings, your content, translating, transcribing, which you can much more easily do with these LLMs, should still have someone review it to make sure it's accurate, really helps get more traffic in today's world.
No, I completely agree, Neil, and I think that's very interesting advice. I think just last question from our end. There's a lot of marketers and CMOs and practitioners out here. Any insights for how a CMO should be thinking for their 2026 strategy, and how big should GEO SEO be as part of their plans?
So geo SEO should be a good chunk, at least 5-10% of their plans, if not potentially more, depending on the industry. Some industries less. Like if you're Boeing and you're selling airplanes, you don't need to invest 10% of your marketing budget in GEO. There's only so many airplane providers out there. But the way I would look at marketing is, where are you getting the majority of your revenue from? What channels? And where's your industry getting majority of their revenue from? That'll show you the opportunities that you're missing out on, and those are the ones you should double down on, because the ones you're already getting your revenue from, they're saturated. To get 5-10% more in most cases will require a lot more work, and you're going to get diminishing returns versus going after the channels you're not doing so well on but your competition is, and that'll start adding up to 3, 4, 5% of your sales. You do that with 6, 7, 8 different channels, next thing you know, you grew your sales 20+%. It all adds up.
Amazing. Now, Neil, I think this has been super helpful. I know we have a hard stop and we had, it's been a pleasure having you here. I think a lot of participants are very excited to see you today. Thank you so much for taking out the time.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Hi, thank you. Thanks a lot, Neil and Anirudh.